Welcome to my channel, The Green English.
Chapter 1. Brothers in Oath. It has been a long day, and Timotun is very tired, but that is unimportant. He looks at the arrow he has just been given and tries to remember if he has ever seen anything as beautiful before. The arrow is far more decorated than all the others he has seen. And he has seen a lot of arrows. After all, his father is the Khan, and not just any Khan, but the most powerful and feared for many days' ride. His yurt is full of the most splendid bows and arrows hanging on the walls. Often, other tribes come to visit. These tribes have beautiful weaponry too. Not just spears, shields, and glinting swords, but artfully carved bows and even more exquisite arrows. So far, he has never seen an arrow like this one. It is longer than his arm, not as long as the arrows the men use, but at least 2 hands longer than the ones he and the other boys use to practice. And the carvings are so detailed that he is almost afraid to touch it. The arrowhead is not made of iron, but of bronzy. This makes it weak and practically useless against anything with even thick fur, let alone against hardened leather or plate armor. Then again, this kind of arrow is not intended to be used like that. The soft metal has been engraved with artful lines and symbols, and the edges have been so carefully polished and sharpened that it could probably split a hair in half. As he looks at it, Timotun is ashamed. It is beautiful, he says. I've never seen anything so beautiful. You are a true artist. Chuzir pulls a face as if Timotun has just said something indecent or spoken badly of the gods. He too holds an arrow in his hand, the one that Timotun has given him in return for this stunning work. He is almost convincing as he pretends to admire it, even if there is very little to admire. It is a completely normal arrow, short and not even entirely straight. Timotun has polished the iron head as much as he can and added a few simple carvings with as much skill as his clumsy fingers allow. Chuzir is kind enough not to say anything about it. I am no artist, answers Chuzir after a noticeable pause and in an almost offended tone of voice. Soon I shall be a warrior, he adds with a sideways glance in Timutun's direction, although I shall never be a Khan, of course. He says these last words reproachfully. But this arrow, says Timotun. I did not make it, interrupts Chuzir. It was old man Shezin who did the carving. In return, I helped him collect firewood and peat for 3 moons. He looks at Timotun. Do you not like it? Of course, says Timotun quickly. It's wonderful. But my own arrow is so... He stops, embarrassed, but Chuzir just laughs and jabs him in the ribs so hard that Timotun will start crying if he does not stop himself with all the strength he has. That's not the point, says Chuzir laughing, because you probably needed just as much time to carve it as I spent helping that rip-off merchant Shezin carry wood, whilst he sat by the fire keeping himself warm. Perhaps that is true, thinks Timotun. Nevertheless, he is ashamed of the gift. If this were someone else, he would suspect them of trying to embarrass him by making such an exaggerated gift. But not Chuzir. Chuzir is his best friend, his only friend even, despite the fact that he is the Khan's son. Or perhaps it is because he is the Khan's son.
Come on, says Chuzir, jabbing him in the ribs again, let's go and try them out. Just the very idea of shooting this exquisite arrow and perhaps damaging it fills Timotun with horror, but Chuzir has already turned on his heels and run off, so Timotun follows him. He runs as fast as he can, but he just cannot keep up with Chuzir and will probably lose him. Chuzir sees that his best friend is having trouble and slows down, then stops entirely. Nevertheless, Timotun is completely out of breath when he too gets to the top of the hill. Chuzir does not say anything, but he cannot stop himself from grinning. Not that he tries for one moment either. I bet I get to the trees before you, Chuzir says. He is not even breathing heavily, while Timotun's lungs are burning like fire and his heart is beating so hard he thinks it might burst. What a cheek, thinks Timotun to himself, and then he turns to Chuzir. Why don't you just tell me what I have to do for you, he asks grumpily. After all, I shall have to do it anyway when I lose the bet. So I might just as well save my strength. Chuzir grins and makes as if to jab him in the ribs again, but he just runs around and starts strolling towards the woods. Timotun follows, cursing himself for what he has just said. Of course, Chizur will never tell anyone anything about it. Timeusen is his friend, after all, and they are about to become brothers in oath. Yet if one of the other boys has heard what he has said, then it will just lead to more rumors in the village. And his father will not like that at all. He will have to be more careful about what he says. The two young warriors reach the trees at the same time. Chizur takes his bow from his shoulder, loads it with Timeusen's arrow and, inspecting it closely, draws it halfway back. There he holds it, waiting until Timeusen too has cocked his bow. He nods the signal to shoot and then draws back his bow in a movement as smooth as it is strong. "Forever," he says. "Forever," echoes Timeusen. Their arrows fly off, with a twin crack. Despite being too short, bent and warped, Timeusen's arrow, sped by Chizur's bowstring, flies almost twice as far as the richly decorated work of art that he himself has shot off. It must have flown at least 200 paces, perhaps even 300, before burrowing into the ground halfway between the trees and the riverbank. "Forever," says Chizur once again, and this time, too, Timeusen echoes him. Chizur is beaming. A warm feeling comes over Timeusen, accompanied nevertheless by a strange feeling of emptiness, almost of disappointment. So now they are brothers in oath. They have been talking about it since last summer and have made preparations accordingly, and somehow, he expected it to be, well, more dramatic. Taking an oath together is more than being brothers by birth, it means being bound together forever, being two parts of a whole who just happen to live in two different bodies. From this day forth, he will be willing to give his life to protect his brother if need be, and he expects this thought to be somehow elevating. Shouldn't the earthquake and the heavens open? Shouldn't there at least be a thunderclap and a few flashes of lightning? Yet there is nothing, of course. Chizur embraces him briefly and then turns away brusquely. "Let's go and get the arrows." They do not run this time, but Chizur has almost twice as much ground to cover as Timeusen to reach his arrow and, for some reason, Timeusen does not want to follow him. He pulls the precious arrow from the ground and wipes it down carefully. Suddenly he has an intense feeling of being watched. Perhaps the other young warriors had found out what they were doing? Timeusen turns round and stiffens. His hunch is true. Except that he is not just being watched, he is being stalked. It's a dog, almost as big as a foal, but far heavier. It is a shaggy-coated monstrosity with huge teeth, dripping with yellow slaver. And it is standing about 10 paces behind him at the edge of the forest, staring at him. Timeusen can feel his heart faltering. He hates dogs and is afraid of them more than anything else in the world. He grips the arrow tighter, but, although his life might now depend on it, something seems to be stopping him from drawing the bowstring. The dog might kill him. Perhaps it does not want to, but it can, and this thought is more than he can bear. "Timeusen, shoot," cries Chizur at almost the same moment as he releases his bowstring. The arrow whizzes past Timeusen's cheek, stroking him with its feathers. As the arrow hits the ground just over a man's length away from the dog, it lets out a frightened yelp and runs off with its tail between its legs. "Timeusen, shoot," shouts Chizur again, "what are you waiting for?" Timeusen hears Chizur's steps and sees the huge dog bolting like a hare towards the trees and disappearing into the undergrowth. Chizur reaches him, tears the arrow from his fingers and, faster than Timeusen's eyes can follow, loads it into his bow. He draws the string back behind his ear and then he lets out a moan as he drops the bow. The dog is gone. "Why did you do that?" he asks angrily. "Why didn't you shoot?" Because the arrow," stutters Timeusen. Chizur looks at him with a frown and Timeusen continues to speak, with a nervous smile. "I was afraid of breaking it, as it is so valuable." This only makes Chizur angrier, but he says nothing more, pressing his lips together out of rage and stomping off past him to fetch his dart. Timeusen knows what will happen in the night. The dragon will come to him and show him what he has missed.
Subscribe my channel The Green English for more interesting stories and learn English through stories.